All right, let's learn some Torah. It is Parshat Shlach, and we have spoken about different aspects of the Parsha, including the rule that comes with the wearing of tefillin, the fringes, tzitzit, the fringes on our clothing, and that we are told in the Torah, "V'lo tatur acharei levavechem v'acharei einechem." Don't follow your eyes when they see something that might or might not be there, which means our interpretive lens is on. Well, that relates directly to something that the spies recount. Remember that 12 spies are sent by Moshe and the people to go scout out the land before we enter it. Will it be conducive for national building? Are there people there already? Are there fruits? What do we need to know? But the idea of how we see and knowing that there's an interpretive lens involved in perception is a big part of this parsha. When 10 of the spies come back and they say it is a beautiful land, but there are giants there, listen to how the verse goes. It's actually a really interesting phrasing of an observation. They say, "V'sham ra'inu et hanefilim b'nei anak min hanefilim, v'nehi ve'enenu kechagavim, v'chein hayinu be'enehem." This is chapter 13, verse 33 of the book of Numbers. The translation I have says, "There we saw the Nephilim," from the word nafal, to fall, the fallen ones. Just as in Greek mythology there's a notion of titans, those who were in heaven and thrown down, there seems to be some connectivity between Torah's language and other ancient languages, mythologies. But we saw Nephilim there. The Anakites, the Anakim giants, are part of the Nephilim, so giants and titans. And this is where it becomes more relevant for our learning. "And we looked like grasshoppers to ourselves, v'nehi ve'enenu kechagavim, v'chein hayinu be'enehem, and so we must have looked to them." Hear that again. We were grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we must have looked to them. You ever have someone in your life say, I'm not sure this really should be me. I don't know if I'm supposed to be in this role. Or a musician who says, I messed up that note. Most people who were in the experience with that musician had no idea that there was any mistake made. And no one on the outside of the person who's doubting their own place really thinks that there's anything wrong with that person being the one taking on that leadership role. Think about what the spies say about themselves. We were grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we must have looked to them. Why were we grasshoppers in our own eyes? We call that imposter syndrome. It shouldn't have been me. I'm not up for this task. This isn't really something I can do. Except that they were chosen as leaders of the people by Moses, appointed by Moses by the command of God to go find something out and bring back the report. And they do. And then they say, but we were really small. We felt so small. And then they take the step further and say, we felt small, therefore they must have seen us as small. Those are not the same things. The interpretive lens that the spies are using to describe how they felt is very different from how they might have been seen by others. Another way of saying this in the affirmative is, we should each work to be our full size, to know that we are here. We are the only ones who are us. Mr. Rogers used to say this, you're special. Only you are you. And I like you. That was Mr. Rogers' language. The spies saw themselves as small, and so they couldn't imagine that anyone would have seen them as anything other. The spies didn't occupy their full, authentic selves. They lost hope. They lost heart. And when Yehoshua and Caleb, Joshua and Caleb say, yes, that is all true, but Hakol Nuchala, we shall overcome, they said, we are here. We can do this. We are up to the task. No one defines me but me. The external affirmation that so many people seek to remind them of who they are, to give them the gift of who I think you are. Well, that's really not such a gift. The real question is, who do you think you are? The original command to Avram is a fascinating one in this light. Lech lecha, go, but lech lecha, go to yourself. Who are you? The 10 spies were afraid, and who could blame them? This is a daunting task. And they felt small. 100%. That's anyone's right, to be intimidated, overwhelmed. We don't judge anyone for feeling that way. But if you feel overwhelmed, why would you think that I see you as small? No, I feel small. Sometimes. And when I do, it might even shift the way that I interact with people. But there needs to be a recognition on my part that how I feel is something happening inside of here. My eyes are seeing myself in a certain way. But that doesn't mean anyone else sees me that way. My inner life is different than my external reality. And in fact, if I can build up the courage to show up and fulfill a task that I have been handed, whether or not I feel like I can really do it, courage is not about the certainty that you can do it. Courage is about showing up. The 10 spies brought back the information that was necessary, and then when they lost heart and believed that the world saw them as small, the people lost hope. Because how we present ourselves, especially in positions of influence, it affects people. There's an interesting teaching that I learned from a friend of mine, Rabbi Aaron Alexander, who's done some work with re-entry programs for people who have been formerly incarcerated. Often, when they get out of jail or prison, they see themselves in a very certain way. And they imagine often that how they are seen by themselves, perhaps unworthy, perhaps vulnerable, marked, they believe everyone can see that. And so there's an interesting thing that's happening in that process. I see myself in a certain way, and that's not objective. That's my subjective self-perception. I see you seeing me in the way that I see me, which means I'm projecting upon you my interpretation of myself, which only reinforces how I feel as I walk through the world. If only I could recognize the boundaries of self-perception and external experience and say, actually, all of this is happening inside of me. And if I can show up without overcompensating and becoming arrogant, but if I can show up courageously, I will have a better time. And whatever someone thinks of me matters a whole lot less than what I think of me. Jimmy Butler from the Heat is on the team that just lost to the Denver Nuggets in the NBA Finals. He gave an interview before the final game, and the press was asking him, what happens if you lose? His answer was, my daughter will love me no matter what. Now, of course, that's not I love me no matter what, which I think he was also saying. But isn't it important to recognize that there are measures of success, and sometimes you watch someone be so successful, but they still have that ache on the inside. I want to bless us to not think of ourselves as chagavim, as grasshoppers. And in the moments where we do, which is fair, to know that that's an internal emotional experience. There's more to us than what we're feeling in that moment. The world doesn't know, actually, what's happening behind your eyes. It's actually hard enough work for me to know what's happening behind my eyes. So let's do that work and never call ourselves names. You are extraordinary. You are extraordinary. And yes, I like you. But what's more important than that is you. You should like you. Because you're wonderful. You're made in God's image. There's a lot going on in our minds always. Let's do the hard work, the beautiful work, the worthy work of loving ourselves so that we can walk through the world and be contagious agents for good. Here we go. La 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 la. Take care, everybody. See you tomorrow.